First and foremost, let me say this. The very idea that we still have separation based off of color is racist in itself. Because anything that can't be applied to all shouldn't be applied to none. If they can't do it, you can't do it. That's how I was raised when I was coming up. And so to have a former president who is now running for president of the United States of America, to have this man ultimately go into hostile environment to be questioned by black women, you got to give him a round of applause. I've never, ever seen somebody so willing to go into hostile territory and be questioned, questioned by a bunch of hyenas. Now, I do like the one in the pink. She's actually dope. I like her. She's a Fox News contributor, so it's interesting that they even have this diversity, equity, and inclusion of people with different opinions on the panel. But let's get to it, y'all. Let's get to it. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's rock out.
Rachel Scott, BBC. Thank you. How are you? How are you? Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir.
Did y'all see her call him Mr. President? Hold on. She called him Mr. President. She called him Mr. President. Before we get into this, she called him Mr. President.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley.
What? Wait a minute. That's how y'all start off interviews? I thought we was going to get to like the middle of the stream and then we was going to start to get into it. I didn't know that that black women had ammo and clips in the chamber immediately as soon as he sat down. He ain't even got comfortable and fixed his suit yet and said, all right, let's get into it. Ain't no pleasantries. Ain't no none of that. It's just straight smoke immediately. Who do that? Who disrespects people like that? I got to hear the full thing.
You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals.
I'm so glad that I didn't watch this and that I'm reacting to this in real time because I can give you all my authentic thoughts.
From Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the question—
Look at Trump. Hey, Trump looking like... And see, Trump ain't no sucker, so he used to dealing with people in the business world, but I think that he not used to dealing with hyenas.
Questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
I would absolutely, if I'm an audience member, I'm cringing. You know how you kind of like get secondhand embarrassment for people, but they so confident that they actually doing the right thing. They think that they cooking. In reality, they out here looking stupid. I think that this woman, if this was any other person, if this was a politician, if this was any other person in real life, people would be finding out every single thing that they can about this person to validate whether or not she's even qualified to be on this panel in the first place. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. If this was any other person, anybody else in the world, if this wasn't a black person, they would be trying to figure out who is this woman, Harpo, and where does she come from, and is she even qualified to even be asking the first question to the former president and the future president of the United States of America. Disrespectful. Absolutely, positively, 100% disrespectful in the worst way.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came.
Hey, notice how he already won over the audience. He already won over the audience in what's supposed to be hostile territory. This is a masterclass. This is a masterclass. I can already see it.
Here, in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke.
And this is a fact. And when I say this, it upsets people because it flies in the face in the narrative of this narrative that's being painted about him, of him being racist. These are facts. When I state opportunity zones, they don't want to talk about it. When I talk about HBCUs and how they was out here broke and struggling and dusty and protesting about their conditions like they was back in Africa, people feeling some type of way about it. And so let me ask y'all a question, because I'm gonna rewind this. We gotta look at this in its entirety. All right, let me ask y'all a question. Is racism or not being pro-black or being against black people a narrative? So I see people every single day that do some of the worst things for the community, but we celebrate them. We celebrate drug dealers. We celebrate killers. We say free Ray Ray right after he knocked your grandma over her head. We celebrate all of the worst things for the community. And as long as that person come out with a dashiki on, then we can say that they pro-black. He can have 8 baby mamas. He could be on child support, not taking care of his family. He can even go and be married to a white woman, which I'm okay with because I don't separate myself based off of race. I separate myself based off of character. And then the person that actually does for you, but then you don't like the way that they talk, they automatically become whitewashed. All of the other tropes that they call them, all of a sudden Trump is racist. After y'all celebrated him literally for like 30 years. Y'all bought his books. He was in y'all music videos. Y'all hung out with him. You took pictures with him. And the minute that he ran for president, and he actually did for black people, did more than the current administration. The current administration wouldn't even meet with Ice Cube for the Platinum Plan. He wouldn't even talk to him. And not only that, they literally drafted legislation, shout out to Biden, shout out to Kamala Harris, that was the worst for the community and was literally locking y'all up over in California. But all it takes is a look, is a color. That's it. Don't matter what you do. Only matter how they perceive you. Let me rewind, because he over here cooking.
One of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke. And I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong. Mr. President,
I would like
he cooking with fish grease today. I didn't know we was going to get a rotisserie chicken on the streets. He cooking with fish grease today. Listen, he said, all right, you want to talk ish? How about we go ahead and one up? You disrespectful. You late. Your equipment don't work. You invited me under false pretenses. I showed up when my opponent didn't, and y'all tried to set me up, and you were part of the ops. This is what a masculinity looks like. See, they don't like that because then they're going to say, oh, you didn't cater to him. Oh, it's not fair because you're supposed to be the bigger person. No, masculinity looks like I'm going to put you in your place and I'm going to help you to understand that there's a hierarchy out here. You may be up here asking me questions, but you invited me. I didn't invite you. You invited me. I didn't invite you. I came here willingly. This is your moment to shine. This is the only opportunity that you had in order to get some visibility, and you fumbled it. You wanted to be a hostile woman. Only opportunity that you had in order to shine. You had the first question, and this is how you use it. You use it to disrespect me. You didn't even let me wipe my feet off. You didn't even say hello. You didn't even say what up, though. Shout out to my people in Detroit. See, the one thing about Trump is that we used to this. We used to the hyenas out in the community. He just now getting a taste of it. He said, I'm not used to dealing with this. I'm used to dealing with a Melania. She's quiet, and she don't even step out of place. She don't come out unless I say what up, though. I done been with a bunch of women, a bunch of wives. I'm not used to the hyenas. The disrespect of you.
It's a very nasty question. I have answered the question. I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson who signed the Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions.
Run it up. Perfect answer for a perfect situation, and I think that was very presidential of him. Let me give him another round of applause. Let me give him another round of applause. Perfect answer for a perfect situation. I'm going to meet you with the same energy that you meet me. No longer are we going to sit here and deal with foolishness. We're going to talk facts, right? I done contributed more money, and I saved the HBCUs. I gave you opportunity zones. We was thriving. You was running up a bag. I took care of you. I came into this hostile environment, and you want to sit here and talk junk about me when people are saying literally to your face that they're not even going to do nothing for the black community at all? The nerve of you. The nerve of you.
Questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire.
Y'all said that this woman is her sorority sister. Y'all let me know that. Give me some information. Let me know what's happening in these streets.
Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop?
She doubled down.
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
No, don't tell me what the words are. Tell me what your interpretation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's like, listen, I know what a friend is, but your definition of what a friend is and how you've encountered that, maybe based off of how it is that I encountered what an associate is. I don't consider what you consider a friend. Help me to understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. Cook, talk to him.
I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans have said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there Harris is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that
Well,
interview.
you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're...
Whoa! Just completely mopped the floor. Listen, get out of my face. You disrespectful. I'm not going to answer it the way that you want me to answer it. I'm going to speak with the people that learn how to respect me, and that's where it is that I extend my grace. That's where I want to spend my time. And he went right to the person that he wanted to ask him the question. That is a masterclass. A masterclass of how you handle a hyena in a hostile environment. Broke her down. Made her look foolish. If I was her husband, if she married this woman in the blue, if I was her husband, I would be disappointed. I'd be like, girl, you disrespecting our family. Girl, we had an opportunity. We put you in a position. We worked our whole lives in order to get you in this position, and now look at you. Look at what you're doing to us. Disrespectful. And this is what black men got to deal with on a regular. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there today. We going to take our time, and we going to actually mine this out because this is a different type of morning show. If you have not sent this to your family and friends, make sure you do so because I don't have no strings on me. And so I'm going to get to the real root of what it is that's really happening in these streets. I ain't got no teleprompter, none of that stuff. I'm just going to speak my authentic thoughts and we going to mine it out from there.
Here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we were divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
Now, let me show y'all the difference between a woman that is projected to probably be a wife and a professional and a woman that tends to be more hyena-like. I've always said that you can ask anything or you can say anything to anybody if you say it in the right way. Let me say it again for the people in the back. You can say anything to anybody if you say it the right way. She asked the exact same question. Listen, y'all. It's so many gems in this video. In the 5 minutes that we've been looking at this video, it's so many gems. She asked it completely different, respectfully, and also phrased the question to where he will not have to be on the defensive and he's not automatically being accused when he's doing you a favor to show up. This is a masterclass. This is why that woman has the position that she has, and the other one, this is beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. One of them can approach you hostile. The other one can ask it in a completely different way, in a feminine way, in a professional manner that would then not put you on the back burner, but would allow for you to be able to express your thoughts authentically. Same question, different people asking it, probably going to get a different result.
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room, I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country, and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs, and frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their They're bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into...
That's a fact. It's a fact. Like, it's nothing that he said, and I hate when people get caught up on the language. Well, what is a black job? It's a job that you doing. It's whatever job you doing if you just so happen to be black.
Address some of the issues with black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same. It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts, and this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single black moms, when you look statistically. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, you know, this woman was unable to get the right equipment.
Hey, look at her face. I wish I could zoom in on this. No, you wanted to be petty. You wanted to be petty. You wanted to start off like this. This is what we gonna do. See, you can't control how I respond. You can't control how I respond. You can say what you want to. We got freedom of speech, but I got freedom to respond and say what I want to too. Yeah, I'ma remember you. I'ma make you a meme. I'ma make you very much famous today. You chose the right one today. You chose the right one today. You thought that you was gonna make a name for yourself, but you're gonna get front row seats, front tickets to the front of the congregation today.
But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it, but I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation
Shout out to the super chats. I'm going to read that after this segment.
A country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the black community probably as much or more.
So what do you do?
Than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls, and then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, you know, let's keep going, and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing well. You say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer it toward him. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient efficient heating.
Mr. President.
Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is also impacting black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff.
She probably same homegirl in the blue get washed up, and so now she a little bit more nervous. That's what you do. You set the precedent by making an example of somebody, and then now everybody else is going to fall in line. You make an example of one person, and everybody else is going to get their act together.
The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again, why would...
They're going to be charging the officer. I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths.
That's correct.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those distinctions?
Well, right now, for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine an innocent mistake?
You go after somebody, and it's a very close call, and it's very dangerous. And you know, they have the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing, because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision, and sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 50 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said he had no memory, and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory, and therefore we're not going to prosecute him.
What case is he talking about? Somebody tell me what. I'm not familiar with this. What case is he talking about?
I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We cover you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to different topics.
I didn't notice you do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I have a hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
No, excuse you. You're the one that held me up at 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race.
I can't even comment on the different things the topics that he's talking about because she decided to make herself a punching bag. Listen, if you wasn't late for 35 minutes, we could definitely get even deeper into these conversations. But he's absolutely right when it comes to political prosecution or political persecution when it comes to being president of the United States of America. They tried to underhand it, and to an extent, it worked in some people's minds, and that they tried to leverage the justice system against him to now market him differently and say, because they know that Trump ain't going to jail. Let's be clear. We all know that Trump is not going to jail. He was never going to go to jail. He was never going to go to prison at all. It was never going to be a thing. It was never going to be a thing. We were interested in it because we was trying to figure out whether or not it would create repercussions as far as trying to leverage that in order to remove him from the ballot or change people's minds as to how it is that they seen him as a presidential candidate. He was never going to jail, ever. But for them to market it to you and say, well, no, he's a felon. He's a felon as a result of you leveraging the justice system in order to try to get him convicted in the court of law. Think about the two things that they brought up a case against him on. Think about it. Let's really break it down and let's put it in perspective. You got a woman that accused him 40 years ago of seeing her inside of a retail store or something and then having some kind of groping or looking at her in a negative, in a nasty way or something like that. Trump said, man, I ain't never seen that woman a day in my life. I don't even know her. I wouldn't remember her. I wouldn't even touch a woman that looked like that. I wouldn't even touch a woman that looked like that. What was her name? Eugene Carroll or something like that? This is real. This is real. A woman can come up. We complain about this all the time. We say, listen, how you going to come back 30? If it was a problem, then how come you didn't say it before I was the president of the United States of America or I was running for president re-election? Now it's an issue? Okay, so a woman can just come back from 30 years ago, 40 years ago and say, oh man, they seen me in the grocery store and he objectified me. That's the first one. The second one, Stormy Daniels. They said that he didn't give her no money in order to be quiet. Really? Really? So now they're not saying the context as to how it is that they was able to get him prosecuted. What they're saying is, oh no, he's a felon. Oh no, he owe money over there. So I got to pay this chick billions of dollars based off of an accusation in a liberal city, New York City, that is blue, from a district attorney and from a court and a judge and a jury of your peers that's clearly against you, that you cannot remove bias because every single person in the world knows who Trump is. How is that fair? In what world is that fair? And we ain't even going to get into Kamala Harris meeting with Andre Dickens and Fani Willis. And Fani Willis is faulty herself, but we keep her in office based off of diversity, equity, and inclusion and identity politics. Come on, man. Miss me with this bull.
Sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past.
Oh, here we go.
He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made.
That's a
and
fact.
So they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
Facts.
He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to?
Of all the things that you can ask the president, you can ask him about policy, you can ask him about the border, you can ask him about who it is that he thinks makes the most sense as far as his presidential cabinet. You can ask him about how it is that he would deal with Wall Street. You can ask him about whether or not he would ship people back over the border. You can ask him what his new border policies would be. You can ask him about Ukraine. You can ask him about Taiwan. You can ask him about Israel. You can ask him about taxes. You can ask him about so many different things that's meaningful. And she's asking him about comments that a vice presidential candidate running mate made in 2021 about childless cat ladies. So every line of questioning that she had prepared was based off of rhetoric, tone, and what did you mean, or what did your candidate, what did the person that's with you mean by what they said? What a wasted opportunity. What a wasted opportunity.
Be your running mate, and do you agree with him?
No, I know this. He is very family-oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families. And I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here. He also says that people that don't have children should get less votes than those that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that your campaign
I think
position?
I'm speaking for him, too. He strongly believes in family. But I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him, actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family-oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just one last point, and then we'll move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this. Right now you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in many cases, and you'll see this happening, if I'm not elected, you're going to see it happening. If I am, you're not going to have any problem. But you're going to see it happening a long time. You're going to see the people in this room and people outside of this room are going to be losing their jobs to people that have come into this country illegally.
Mr. President, can we stay with just kind of the state of the race right now? Because I felt like that vice president question, candidate question was right in there with that. So let's talk about J.D. Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the gate. I don't know if you're hearing what we hear as reporters, but it's been a tough couple of weeks for him. Why did you choose J.D. Vance?
Why
did you choose him? And I'm having a hard time hearing, too.
I chose
I know
him
everybody
because,
out there can, but it's hard
I'll tell you
to hear.
why. I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work and the working man and woman, and especially the working man and woman who have been treated very unfairly, because you have many of them in this room, but you have many of those people, they were treated very unfairly. They worked very hard and they were treated unfairly. He wrote the book that became a bestseller. The movie became a smash hit. He's a very smart guy without the benefit of having a family that has contacts, like a father that was well-connected. He got into Yale Law School. He graduated in 2 years from Ohio State, summa cum laude. I mean, you take a look at, his career has been an amazing career. He started off at a level with a difficult family situation, very difficult, with the mother and the father and everything else. He ends up going to Yale Law School and was one of the top students, became the head of the Law Journal. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
Basically what he's saying is that he's qualified for the position. He's incredibly intelligent, and he came from nothing, and he didn't even have any connections, and he still was able to pull himself into a position where he actually probably would be best suited for this job, considering what he's been able to accomplish and what his past has qualified him to be. So we're not doing it based off of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's just based off of your results. I agree with it.
4 years, he was in the military with great distinction for 4 years, got out, went into business, became successful in business, very successful in business, actually. Did public offerings and other things. And I have to believe in that. I mean, he's somebody that was born in a rough situation. Most of the people know that situation because it was very well documented in his book. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best students in Yale, that meets a young woman at Yale who was also outstanding, and they get married, they have a beautiful family. But he had he's made himself an amazing life. He then goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement. That helped. But he wins the Senate. He becomes a United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator. And so, Harris, like I respect you for your success, I respect people for their success.
The reason I asked the question is because the last time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were shot. We'd been together for much of that day. You left to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And 2 days after that...
I cannot understand. Your microphone
I know,
is so
it is really hard for me to understand
it's just,
you too.
I can understand you perfectly.
Because she's closer.
I can understand you.
I'm happy to hear that, sir.
But I can't
really
understand, Harris,
I have a few more questions.
because of the distance, and the mics are really in lousy shape, but I cannot understand
Are you asking a question?
what you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were prophetic because I asked you who you wanted to choose for vice president.
Yeah.
And you said normally it really wouldn't matter what they would bring, you know, you choose somebody that you think has a future, that sort of thing. But you said these words 3.5 hours before an attempted assassination on your life. You told me that bad things happen, Harris. And that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at J.D. Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons than what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think J.D. is. I think that all of them would have been. But you're not voting that way. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win. If you don't like me, I'm not going to win.
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in.
J.D. Vance?
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. To your point and to Rachel's point, he, you know, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself.
Oh, snaps. We got a single baby mama up on the panel. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to my ladies. Shout out to my ladies, Mama Sadies. That's why they so bothered by it. Okay, I'm with it. I'm with it.
Do you think, well, I mean, my point
but at
is
least
here.
it was said in a friendly manner.
My point is, do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the death of a baby after the baby is born, based on the governor of Virginia. Based on the governor of Virginia, they're allowing the death of the baby after it's born. They're allowing abortions in the 8th and 9th month.
Well, Democrats have denied.
I think they're right. And I think the Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps, but the Republican Party, what we're doing is bringing it back to the states where everybody wanted it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted abortion brought back. They didn't want Roe v. Wade in the federal government. They wanted it, everybody.
But the majority of Americans oppose Roe v. Wade being overturned.
They don't know about this. Right now, they're voting. It brought it back to the states. Now, I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Ronald Reagan believed with rape, incest, life of the mother. I do. I think most people do. I think most Republicans do also. But if you take a look, right now they're doing, it's an amazing thing, out of the federal government, it's in states, and people are voting. And I will say, Ohio is, let's call it a more liberal version, has been approved. Kansas, the same thing, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. But the people are now voting. and is taking this issue that's been going on for 52 years and has torn our country apart, and it's giving it to the people to vote on. And they're voting. And many states have already voted. Others are in the process of voting. And it's bringing it back to the people and a vote of the people. And it's not at all radical. And again, you have to follow your heart. I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Most people believe in the 3 exceptions. Most Republicans believe in the exceptions. But they don't want to see an abortion in the 9th month or the 8th month. Almost everybody agrees to that. And they certainly don't want to see, in the case of the governor of Virginia, the former governor, I might add, who said, we set the baby aside and then we decide what to do. Meaning, what do? We execute the baby. That's a radical, horrible position. And some people want that. I don't want it. Most people don't.
Thank you. Can I just pivot really quickly to another question about, you brought up health, Harris. You're an active man. We see you golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be president at 82, which is older than Biden is right now.
But not mentally. Look, mentally.
Here's the question.
He's shot. But most people,
would you
most people, I know many people in their 80s and their 90s that are in great shape. Some of our greatest leaders. You look at throughout the world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you?
Oh, absolutely.
And who would make,
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
I think I'd know. Look, if I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated me.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That wasn't a question. She didn't ask me a question. She gave a statement. That wasn't a question.
I repeated your statement, sir, actually.
You said you would. You would
Oh,
make that
absolutely.
decision
If I
to step
thought
down.
that I was failing in some way, I want people to be sharp. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them and I aced them.
Well,
I took 2 of them. But let me ask.
Yeah.
I would like to have people running for president, and I don't mean because they're 75 or 85. I think anybody running, I'd like to do it. People say it's not constitutional. I would like to have something passed where you can do it. I think we should know. I mean, I've watched what's happened in the last couple of years under this gentleman, and our country is a mess. We have inflation. We have the millions of people falling in. We have Afghanistan, which was the worst, most embarrassing moment.
You know why let me tell y'all something. You know why they feeling some type of way about Trump? You know why they feeling some type of way about it? Is because they can't control him. That's the sum total of what I'm seeing in this interview is that they don't like the fact that they can't control how it is that he answers questions, what it is that he want to communicate, and what he want to get out as far as to the people, as far as voters. That's the sum total of it. You can't tell me what it is that I'm going to say. You can't tell me how to respond to you if you decide to punch at me. And this is exactly what masculinity is. It's not based off of what you think. I knew what I was getting into when I came here. I knew that it was going to be hostile territory. I also knew that it was a possibility that the girl that asked me the questions was going to be Kamala Harris's sorority sister. And you can't control me. I'm not a puppet. Historically, they've been able to get people to do what they want them to do, especially when you're trying to be presidential. But the people I don't know if y'all really understand this. The people are tired of pivoting, posturing, and presenting the 3 Ps. Pivoting, posturing, and presenting a front. They want the real. You know why Kamala Harris isn't loved, let alone liked, but people feel some kind of obligation to vote for her simply because she's presenting herself as black? You know why? Because we don't give ourselves enough credit to be able to see through the fakeness. That's the honest to God truth. When you look at Kamala Harris, if you just put them 2 side by side, let's say that we're not looking at policy. Let's say that we're not paying attention to whether or not they did good on their record over the last 7 and a half years when you compare Trump versus Biden and the Biden administration versus the Trump administration, as far as what Kamala Harris is a part of, let's assume that we set every logical thought aside, which most people are, because most people aren't even informed. And let's say we just make an assessment off of who you are and how you present yourself to be. Not what they trying to market you as, but just who you are. The eye test. You know, when you go in and you kick it with somebody inside of a bar or whatever, and y'all kicking it, and you sit at the bar instead of sitting in the booth, and y'all start having conversation, and you start talking to that girl, I don't have to ask her what her body count is. I know if she for the streets or not. The eye test. You know that person that is going to say what you is uncomfortable with hearing, but he going to absolutely tell you the truth. So you may not necessarily want to be around him all the time, but you know that when you talk to him, you can depend on him. If you in a bind, or you got an issue, or you really need somebody to give you some advice, or if you know if somebody going to really be there for you, the eye test. Are you comfortable with that girl just being your associate, or would you actually make her a friend? Because if you tell her your secrets, even though she seemed like a nice person, would that secret get out? The eye test. Do she overly heartily laughs just for the sake of laughing in order to be in people's faces, or is she authentically laughing because you told a good joke? The eye test. And let's set aside everything and let's just go based off of the eye test. You know why it's so difficult for you to like Kamala, and you're forcing yourself? They're forcing her on you. They're forcing her on you because based off of perception, right? Sorority member, district attorney. We're not going to go off the actual record of what they did, but based off of perception, she seems like she should resonate with the people. But if you just give it the eye test, if you actually talk to black people and you say, what do you think about Kamala Harris? Ask this question. Remove what you think about her as a black woman and say, man, would you go out and hang out with this woman? Do you trust her to do the thing that's in your best interest? Do you actually believe, and would you leave your husband around her? The eye test. Would you leave your husband, if she ain't got nothing to lose, let's say she ain't in that position, and y'all just hanging out as homegirls in college, would you have left your man around her? And see, here's the difference between the two. And this is why men resonate with Trump and women are forcing themselves to try to rock with Kamala. Some women, this is the difference. Men know that it's not about what you tell me. It's not about how you present yourself. It's whether or not we think you actually real. Because we can deal with somebody that got a difference of opinion than us, but what we can't deal with is not knowing whether or not you're the snake in the grass. It's much easier to deal with somebody that may have a difference of opinion. We can agree on some things, we disagree on some things, but hey, I know you are who you are, and so in this capacity, I know you're going to execute on that. I may not necessarily care about whether or not you the greatest person at home, but I know that you're going to stay up late at night in order to get that work done, because when we got to deliver in front of a client tomorrow, your life might be in shambles. You might be partying. Dennis Rodman, I call it the Dennis Rodman effect. Dennis Rodman had purple hair and stuff when he played for the Bulls. He was over there busting down Madonna and all of that. Nobody wanted to hang with Dennis Rodman when it came to going to the clubs and stuff. But they knew for a fact when he showed up on the court that he was going to get 27 rebounds and be a menace on the defensive end. He's going to deliver. We know who we dealing with. Dennis made no apologies. He gave no different perception of who he was. He was what he was, whether you agree with him or not. And when it came to the business of basketball, he made sure that he delivered. That's the difference. With Dennis, we can win. With Dennis, we can win. I don't know who this guy is over there. I'm not sure what he gonna do. He can dribble real good. He look good on paper, but he gonna snitch on you in the locker room. And that's the difference. It's the eye test. We don't give ourselves enough credit for being able to really recognize who's real. The one thing we know about Trump, and the two things is for certain, and the thing that they try to use against him is that he's absolutely positively exactly who he say he is, and he makes no bones about it. So you may not necessarily care about whether or not he busting down a chick over there, but whether or not he can actually negotiate what's in our best interest as Americans, and whether he can stand up to foreign leaders and make the best decisions from a policy perspective and get that bag, because we need to be able to feed our family. I don't really care if he getting head over there. Y'all didn't care if Clinton was getting head, but the one thing that I don't trust is Kamala. I don't trust her. I don't trust her. I would not hang with her. There's no way in the world you would ever convince me. And I think that she is absolutely positively the very definition and the front woman of what we don't like when it comes to presenting yourself in a negative way, or whether or not you could. She is very much the type of person that will be in the back room saying, hey, listen, you want to be a part of the cool kids club? I've heard stories about some people saying that they met certain people and whatever. I think Dave Chappelle was telling a story about how he walked into a room and it was Kamala Harris and this person and this person. And then that came back to me when I seen her and she said, I'm running for president. She keep laughing like this. Any woman that show her teeth that much, girl, you so crazy. Rita be like, not that one. The eye test, not that one. You would never want her to be your friend, ever. Not a close one, an associate, not a close one. Fake is fakest person ever. Don't ever got no stance or no position on nothing. Have y'all noticed that? She don't have no stance. She takes no, whenever you get a person that has no stance and no position whatsoever, watch them. Watch them. Y'all keep, women intuition. How come intuition don't work when it comes to being able to identify whether or not this woman is fake or not? Women intuition is, you know whether or not your man is cheating. You could tell if that girl don't really like you and she was probably talking behind your back when you left the nail shop or the hair shop in order to get your wigs and stuff. You know every single thing about every person that is around you. You can identify a dude that want to bust you down, and you know just in your spirit you might still go with him because you may be in your whole phase, but in reality you know whether or not that dude got your best interest at heart. That's why you keep leaving that other guy in the friend zone, because you know he gonna still be there. But this guy right here, I gotta give him the pussy immediately, because if I don't give it to him, I might lose him. But that guy over there, he willing to wait in the friend zone. And so I'm just going to keep him right here. He just going to stay right here comfortably. But this guy right here, I could finesse him. Your female intuition, you know if your kid fell out the bed and you on a whole nother flow. You already know. Female intuition work all the time except for when we need it the most. Except for when we need it the most. Female intuition work except for when we need it the most. That's a fact. How can y'all not see this? How are men able to identify it? We can tell when a woman is for the streets, but y'all can't see. You ignore everything around you in order to still roll with a woman that's not best for you. How is this a thing? How is this a thing? We a different type of news show over here. We a different type of morning show over here. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not really sure they ready for me on national TV. Even when I be giving my thoughts, I be censoring myself like, oh man, I can't even say that. I self-censor like I'm a rapper. I'm not really sure that they ready for this type of conversation. I'm a different type of monster over here. For any of these networks that's contacting me saying, Anton, do you want to come on? Is this something that we could do for you? I want you to understand that I'm a different type of monster. I don't say what you want me to say. I'm going to tell you exactly what they talking about on the streets, and then I'm going to bring it into corporate, and I'm going to bring it back to you to help you to understand how it come back to the money. I'm not going to tell you I can't be controlled. You can't tell me what to say on the script. You can't tell me that I got to vote for somebody just because they black, because I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'm already rich. What you going to do to me? I'm already rich. Sorry. You can't buy me. You can pay me. You can't buy me. It's a difference. You can pay me to do what I'm already doing, but you can't buy me. Sorry.